most successful C&Q professionals are those who are process-oriented, they are curious people, they always ask questions, and they are not afraid to challenge.
Welcome, Hazem, to the Making It in Manufacturing podcast. Thank you for your time today in your busy schedule at the conference to come and to meet us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate it. Great opportunity to share some background and experience with you.
No, perfect. And how's today been at the conference, and most importantly, your talk?
Very good. I think the talk attendees should judge that, but I think in all, the meeting is going very well. It's a great opportunity for professionals to collaborate, meet each other. You would be surprised how many people have been on conference calls together, but they haven't seen each other in real life. So it's really great. Yeah,
that's funny, isn't it? You're in a different conference room or something, but you're in the same Teams meeting. It shows the technology these days of losing that human interaction, I suppose, but the benefits of it at the same time.
Absolutely.
So I think to begin with, if you can give a quick introduction to yourself, so your name and your current role and what you're doing at the moment.
Sure. My name is Hazem Eleskandarani. I'm currently with CSL Behring, Senior Director, Global Head of Quality Engineering.
Yeah.
So my team is basically located at the 4 Behring sites, one in the US, one in Switzerland, one in Germany, and one in Australia.
Perfect. And you're based in the US?
I am based in the US, correct.
Perfect. So, before we dive into your career background and everything, I always start with 3 fun facts about yourself. I'm hoping you might not have 3, that's okay. But
all right, so I have 3 family members. So I reached out to family members and asked for 3 fun facts. And I picked one from each person. So my son came back with love handiwork. I love to do things myself, DIY. And basically he reminded me that years ago I built my own stone patio from scratch, from design, material takeoff, retaining wall, everything. And at home I have the nickname of the fixer of all things. So I like to do things, troubleshoot and fix things and stuff like that. So anytime something breaks, they say, Dad.
Yeah, that's the engineering side.
Yes,
it seems that my father-in-law has an engineering background.
Okay.
He's exactly the same. He comes around, he fixes everything. It's one of the things I need to work on. As I'm now a parent and husband and things, I need to develop my skill set in this area, which I think will come with time.
Gonna be the CEO of repairs.
So I'll ask for some tips for you later on that.
Absolutely. Second one is came from my daughter. She said, I always look for innovative ideas, and she calls me the vault of unpatented ideas.
Okay.
Interesting, I've never heard that term until I asked her the question yesterday. So I always have ideas about things to do, and I think that's the engineering background as well, right? But I never patent anything, and years later you could find some idea that I talked about, and it's And my wife sent me one as basically a new fur dad. So 2.5 years ago, we adopted a beautiful puppy. Her name is Cleopatra, or Cleo. So Cleo's almost 3 years old, German Shepherd.
The German Shepherd, beautiful. Yeah, amazing. A dog, I have a mini sausage dog. Well, I say mini, he's a full size, so he's big. And it's amazing how much it transforms the home, right? Especially with children, no matter what age. Once you get a dog, a home doesn't feel like home when they're not there, does it?
Absolutely. A lot of positive energy.
Yeah, no, for sure. Brilliant facts. I'm sure your 2 children and wife had fun, and they were quite kind, to be honest, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I did notice that you picked the ones that you wanted, so you can tell me later on the other things that you said.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I suppose to dive into your career journey and things. I know you're not originally from the US, so correct. Yeah, if you can give me a bit of a background to...
Sure. I was born and raised in Alexandria, Egypt, the famous city, the only one, the one and only Alexandria that was built by Alexander himself. I grew up there. I basically went to undergrad school. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I practiced engineering for a couple of years before deciding to move to the US. So 35 years ago, I decided to move to the US, pursuing graduate school, more higher education, and so on. But definitely, I think the years I spent in Egypt, of course, shaped big part of my personality, big part of my life. It's basically home country. Alexandria as a city, it's a marvelous city, very cosmopolitan, and that's again maybe when we talk a little bit later about leadership style. Definitely upbringing and the environment I grew up in shaped a lot of my personality. I'm grateful for that. So basically again grew up in Alexandria, moved to the US. I went to the University of Utah seeking a graduate degree in mechanical engineering, so I do have a master's degree in engineering. And basically I started my career working in Utah for a steel company. And by the way, my background is iron and steel. So when I started my career back in Egypt, I worked as a plant engineer for a steel making company.
So what made you back then in Egypt decide on engineering? Was the sort of subject you wanted to pursue? Was there anything particular that...
I was always curious. I always liked to learn and know how things work and how to make things work. So two things. And honestly, I knew that I wanted to be an engineer maybe when I was 15. I have love for math. I have love for physics and how things work. And that's a great combination for any engineer, especially mechanical engineer.
And then how did you evolve into the life science industry? You know,
so that's a long story. I mean, we could be here for hours, but after finishing my grad school, I moved to Pennsylvania. That's where my wife grew up, and that's where we met. And I started my career at an engineering firm, a very large engineering firm, Fluor Daniel. And basically, they had a steel industry related project. So that's how I started. The project was not mega project, so within about a year we were done, and there were no more steel related projects. So again, you know, my manager at the time was looking for the right place for my skills and so on, and there was an opening in a pharmaceutical project. So she asked me, would you like to start? I said, sure. So it was not by a career choice by design per se, but once I started there, I loved it. I loved basically the different perspective you have on projects. Things do not have to be huge as in the steel industry. Things don't have to be, you know, very powerful as the steel industry, right? It's very different. And definitely after the first project, when you learn more about the products, you learn about how your work would actually impact people's lives. It would improve, and in some cases actually saves life. That's a different dimension you would add to your work, and you say, wow, at the end of the project impact. You say, was I part of this really? This is amazing, right?
It's amazing how you've fell into that, I suppose, within the life science industry, and when you did that, the fulfillment you got has led you to now work in the pharma industry for
absolutely.
For
I was
how
committed.
many years?
I was committed really after amazing, the first project. That was it for me.
And how to go back a little bit? How was the transition from Egypt to US? Was it a simple, quite easy? Was it a cultural shock and differences of sort of growing up a little bit in that regard, or?
I wouldn't say cultural shock, but there are differences, and there are similarities. By the way, it is ironic, right? So Americans have great sense of humor. Egyptians have an amazing sense of humor. We make jokes about almost everything, right? Including ourselves. So I think, you know, the world is becoming a smaller village than we think it is. Culture, is becoming very transparent. People actually watch American movies. People watch soccer games that have Egyptian stars. So again, you see that the culture is infiltrating each other and blending. That's a better word, actually. It's blending.
Yeah, I think the social media and the world and how everything accessible now everything is the key for that, which for diversity, educational piece, it's amazing. You know, I think that everyone that has that.
Absolutely. Granted, when I moved to the US, there was no internet yet. I'm dating myself here, but I truly believe that the differences could work to one's advantage rather than being an obstacle. And I've always maintained a positive attitude in my life. So, you know, one of the things, for example, we can talk about is the education system in Egypt is very academic. Right. So you study subjects to the bone, to the core. The US, you do that, of course, but there is a practical element that's always associated with it. There's internship. There is, you volunteer and you work outside of the school and so on. So the practical aspect of it was very attractive for me. At the same time, you know, just basically there are subtle cultural differences, but again, you could have that work to your advantage rather than being an obstacle.
Did you move by yourself at that time?
Yes,
you went so full alone. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's I did the same thing. I'm not as far, but I moved to Switzerland when I was younger by myself. I'd been once, twice. Didn't know the language, couldn't really integrate, and it was a shock at the beginning. But I think if you immerse yourself, you know, in the culture and put yourself out there, I think it can be quite an easy educational and growth moment within someone's life, I think, to develop as a person. And you'll have learned, without realizing, you'll have learned so many skills that you use today in leadership, in management, from just that simple transition.
I agree. To add to this, I was a Boy Scout. I started actually as a Cub Scout at the age of 7. So by the age of 14, as a Boy Scout, I used to represent Egypt in jamborees.
Wow.
So by the way, the first jamboree I went to was in Switzerland.
Okay.
Not that far from Bern.
So
actually being a Boy Scout also shaped my life in a very good way. It added a lot of curiosity, a lot of resilience, a lot of love for travel. All are great aspects, you know, that would help shape one's personality when they get a little bit older.
Fast forward then to your moving into pharma and side of things. Obviously, I know you spent 14 years with Merck and had different roles, I think, with them. How was that? Was that your first real big pharma? Was the one before?
No, not really. So when I worked for Fluor, I did a couple of projects, and then I moved to Jacobs Engineering, another company. I did a couple of projects. But I always, again, it's the element of curiosity, right? So when you work for an engineering firm, you don't actually own the systems to the end. And I was always curious, you know, the outcome of my work. What happens when the client at the time takes over? What does the operation environment look like? How do people operate the machine? What kind of issues they have? What I could have changed in the design that would impact the operability of the equipment, the outcome of the equipment, and so on. So I got an opportunity to join Merck, and that was a great move because I became the owner. So I was responsible for end-to-end, basically. You design the system, you live with the consequences of your design, right? So you basically, attention to details was very critical to the outcome, the final outcome at the end of the project.
I think it's a great transition to be able to see both sides of the coin of the design concept, you know, construction element, which a lot of the engineering firms take off the end client's hands. For you to have that both elements of experience massively helps for the success of a project.
Absolutely.
You know, definitely.
Absolutely. So getting to know what the end means, and when you hand over the systems and equipment to somebody from operations, what they're looking for exactly, but also how to pay attention to design details early on, so basically you can actually make the product you said you're going to make.
No, I mean, and in that role then, I know it was Global Engineering Services. So is that, can you talk to me a bit about the role that you had at that time?
You read my LinkedIn profile very well,
I did,
actually.
Yeah.
So, yes, so Global Engineering Services at that time, like any other company. So I did work for Johnson & Johnson after that, and CSL. So engineering in general within the pharmaceutical environment is basically the owner representative, the company's representative with engineering companies. So the engineering team oversees the facility design, facility development, architectural design, people flow, material flow, waste flow, all of these factors that do come in play when you design a facility. I worked in process engineering. So basically my team, we were responsible for designing the equipment, the manufacturing systems, influencing again, people flow and material flow and so on. But more importantly, designing these equipment, making sure that we select the right vendor, right supplier, testing the equipment before it leaves the shop, and then ensuring the installation is done properly, commissioning the equipment, and then qualification.
Perfect. And it's something I really wanted to dive into, your overall experience with commissioning qualification as a topic. It's a huge skill set that's thought after at the moment within Europe and the US, with how many new facilities are being built and are at different stages, I suppose, across the landscape. So in terms of, you've talked about the end-to-end project design and through to completion. I was keen to get your perspective on what are some of the common mistakes or errors that happen on these projects throughout, and that can be from design in more and commissioning, I suppose.
So the pharmaceutical industry is facing challenges right now, and it's, in a nutshell, it's project acceleration. Right. So there was a very interesting presentation at the ISPE conference, and the gentleman who was presenting used the term warp speed execution of capital projects, and it's really unprecedented pace at which projects are going right now, from design to completion, right, from concept all the way until you finish qualification.
What would you say is the time of that at the moment?
So it used to be 40 years. It went down to 3 years, and from 3 years it went to 2 years. So right now his presentation, for example, was about a project that was planned from start to finish, from the day they started concept design all the way until they finished qualification, was 28 months.
Wow.
Which is actually very interesting, because it could take almost half of that time for an equipment supplier to build their machines, right? So you're talking about basically designing the entire concept, the entire facility, making sure that the construction is properly designed and it's chartered and started, while you're building equipment, testing equipment at the same time at the factory, bringing the equipment, installing that, going through the entire cycle of a capital project in 28 months.
It's crazy.
It is.
It's crazy that it can be done now like that from where it was, which is a positive in terms of the advancements in technology, planning. But I wonder, in a year's time, what are they going to find that's potentially wrong? Or potentially, I mean, it will have passed inspections and things to be cleared to do stuff, but what are the drawbacks of doing something that quick? Because there must be something.
So definitely, it is very stressful environment. So it creates a lot of stress, right, when you're trying to compress timelines. However, I think we within the pharma industry are getting smarter and smarter. We plan activities in parallel. For example, you could be going to modular construction. So you're basically building rooms off-site while you're doing the civil work and structural work and getting the site ready to receive these modules, these rooms, and then install equipment. I actually did projects in the past where we shipped equipment to the modular construction company. They install it in, and you ship these modules to the site with the equipment installed. So you're currently basically having a lot of factors working for you if you try to accelerate projects. But of course there is the human element. So the human element is a huge factor, right? If you have the right team, if you have the right expertise, you'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
However, there is a huge demand on from every manufacturer out there on people to accelerate projects and so on. So at a certain point of time, you're going to have a shortage of resources or skilled professionals who are capable of doing this.
Yeah, and I see that on a weekly basis when we're supporting clients at different phases of projects. CQV engineers, for example, in certain countries are extremely difficult to find because they're all in projects. Yep. And it's one of the drawbacks, I suppose, which is a different challenge of finding the right people. I touched on there a bit about inspections and getting a site ready to be passed to then start producing. From your experience, what are some of the common things inspectors are looking for when it comes to commissioning qualification on a new site?
Sure. So in general, commissioning qualification is basically, in a nutshell, you're ensuring that the systems are making the product to the specifications you said you're going to make, right? And you ensure that you have tested every aspect of the equipment that affects product quality. That's the qualification of the system, right? So in general, to be ready for inspection, you have to have well-documented evidence that you have designed, tested, qualified, and again documented the testing of the equipment to basically provide evidence that you can make consistent quality of the product. So anything related to product quality is basically going to be of an interest for an inspector. It could be room design, it could be equipment design, it could be facility flows, it could be waste flows, it could be material flow, people flow, gowning, everything, right? From commissioning qualification, the best thing a C&Q professional would do is to provide the foundation for the site team to basically present their site to the inspectors, right? So they have to have proper documentation, robust execution plan, and robust execution. The best thing to do also is to do what you committed to do. So if you have a qualification plan developed for the project or for the facility, you got to make sure that basically you execute to the plan. And deviations do happen, right? You have to document that very well. You have to make sure that you provided rationale, you provided CAPAs, you closed all of these CAPAs and moved on. But as long as you have provided solid documentation and be transparent, there's no perfect projects. Mistakes will happen, right? Eventually. So you have to basically provide a well-documented evidence of your journey from point A to point B.
And I think from where a lot of businesses sometimes I've seen get that bit wrong is a lot of when the construction moves into commissioning, and there's a ton of different subcontractors doing a lot of different bits of work and things, and your certificates and documentation can sometimes get a bit loose. So I think have you seen that as a sort of a challenge in some points to try and get, is that something that's a common?
Absolutely. So documentation is a great example of basically needing experience, right? So you have to have the right expertise, including construction companies. The team needs to basically know what is critical for qualification and what is critical for construction, what kind of rigor you put on documentation that will be used for qualification, because it's completely different from the documents you use, in your day-to-day construction work, right? So if you're constructing, Wi-Fi systems or water for injection systems, purified water systems, these systems need to be qualified, but they are also built and run. Piping is run by a construction company, so the rigor they put in the documents themselves is totally different. And
that's with the reviewing part and making sure it's up to scratch takes, I suppose, a bit of the time at that point of it. And I think a big topic, I suppose, that I speak about all the time is projects being delayed, and the reasons for that are a number of varied. And I wanted to get your opinion on what you think and some examples of why projects tend to be delayed through these CapEx journey.
Running behind schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in general, there are certain foundational elements any project needs to have.
Yeah.
Right? So, one of them is clear scope. The project without clear scope, clear endpoint, will basically be a project going in the dark. You don't know where you should be going, right? So clear goals and objectives, especially final project objectives, right? Where we want to go, where we want to be 3 years from now at the end of this project. The second thing, and these are all fundamentals that any good project leader would know, you need to have a sponsor. So any project without an executive sponsor, especially, and we're talking about large capital projects, right? Any project without sponsor is basically a project that could be stopped at any time, could be derailed at any time, decisions could change at any time. So the sponsor's role is very, very important. The sponsor basically acts as the filter between the capital project team and executive leadership. He or she would basically be maneuvering through decision making, large decision making on behalf of the project, on behalf of the executive committee, and making sure that the project does not get derailed.
Who's typically that person within the sort of chain of a business?
It depends on the company. Every company, sometimes it's basically the plant manager, right? So the GM of the manufacturing facility would be the sponsor of the project. Sometimes it's VP of operations. It depends on the project, depends on the company, but every company should have a solid structure for selecting a sponsor for capital project.
Is there anything else? Any other typical reasons for?
There are millions of reasons. We can be talking here for days and days.
External,
but there are other factors as well. So selecting the right team, right? If you do have a team that is experienced, team that is skilled, team that works very well together, you're pretty much guaranteed that this project will be executed in a great way, as long as no other external factors happen. So, project gets delayed because of either external factors or internal factors, right? Internal factors, definitely, it's team related. You need to have a strong project leader. So the project manager needs to know everything about planning, construction, startup, equipment. But in my opinion, I think the team is one of the biggest foundations for successful project. A team could make or break a project, honestly.
Which is sometimes hard to get right, I suppose, especially if you're hiring new people into the business. And I think once you get that team there, you can use them over a number of different projects. So you can add to it.
Absolutely.
I was keen to get your opinion on, in general, the sort of engineering landscape and new trends at the moment that are hot within the engineering space, and if there's things to...
So there are two trends, and I was actually making a joke during the presentation because last year I was at the annual meeting in the US, ISPE annual meeting, and the buzzword and the keyword at the time, almost common in every presentation, was AI. Right? This year it's risk-based approach, risk assessments, and so on. However, I'm saying that jokingly, but they are very important, right? These are two new trends that every company needs to pay attention to, right? So artificial intelligence and augmented reality are basic, especially in C&Q world, right? People do rely a lot on AI and augmented reality. So for example, testing of equipment. Right. We used to, years ago, to basically go many times to a vendor's shop, a supplier's shop, to make sure we are monitoring the progress of fabrication of equipment, assembly of equipment, and so on and so forth. That was a lengthy process, expensive process. Right now, you could do the same using augmented reality. So through virtual reality communication, you could basically go and inspect different components, different parts of the equipment, and so on and so forth. The other one is risk management, not risk itself, but risk management. So I truly believe that the industry, and I'm sure other industries are doing the same thing as well, everybody's is becoming more aware of the risk associated with project acceleration. So we're trying to accomplish many complex goals in a much shorter time. And that definitely comes with risks. You're trying to build systems that do very critical tasks and very critical objectives at the end, right? The medicine and the therapeutic products we're manufacturing actually saves lives. So understanding where the risks are through a robust risk assessment process and involving the right people is very critical to our industry. So I think these are two trends, and you will hear a lot about that in the upcoming conferences and seminars and so on.
Which, I mean, risk management isn't a new thing. It's been around for years. So why all of a sudden is it now such an important thing, and people are maybe changing how they do risk management? How is it now?
Simply because the acceleration of project timelines drives people to the awareness. We need to know what kind of risks we're taking. At the same time, bringing that a little bit closer to the world of commissioning qualification, actually risk assessments and risk managed approach is a great way to understand the process. Because you cannot run a risk assessment on something that you do not understand. So definitely bringing all of the SMEs, subject matter experts around the table and saying, okay, we have an equipment that does X, Y, Z. What kind of risks we're taking here? What could affect the product quality? And these are the elements that we need to pay close attention to, as opposed to the standard production process for the vendor that they have made it 100 times before, so we don't have a risk out there.
AI, how is it something that are experimenting with? Are you starting to incorporate this into your business and thinking about it?
Currently, without talking about CSL for example, as my current employer, but almost every company is looking at AI right now, and it's just basically utilizing AI to get the best out of whatever task you're getting, right? So in case of commissioning qualification, again, you could do basically or utilize AI in troubleshooting. So you have some issues with the equipment. Well, did we experience that before? Do we have it at other sites? Does the vendor have history of similar problems, similar issues? So it could help in troubleshooting. It could help in improving the commissioning qualification process itself. So I think the sky's the limit, right? So there is no end to how you could use AI. It's just basically a matter of necessity is the mother of invention, right? So basically, whenever the need arises, people will tap on the available resources, and AI is an amazing resource right now.
Do you think there's any negatives to it, or any risks to it?
Excellent point. I think yes, definitely. So maybe if we rely a lot on AI, we could end up being a little bit lax in our dependence on human intelligence. Maybe people will take results for granted. In my opinion, still we're way far from relying 100% on AI, and we should never rely 100% on AI. You do need to have the technical experts in place who would vet the information and say, does it make sense or no?
No, it's going to be fascinating to see how it develops over the next 5 to 10 years, and how new bits of equipment is emerged with AI, and what things are developed. Really, it's certainly going to be exciting, and will have benefits of time and money that is going to help produce drugs quicker, which is the exciting part. You briefly mentioned before in terms of one of the most important things to get right on projects is the team, and I know from looking at different projects that have maybe gone wrong, I see quite a high churn of leadership in positions through projects, which ultimately have delayed and things have gone wrong. So I think, talking about leadership yourself and coming from Egypt and shaped the way that you are, how do you think what leadership has shaped your leadership, and what style of leadership do you use with teams to get the best out of them?
I consider myself a lucky person, to be honest with you. Throughout my career, I had great managers, great leaders. So my very first leader when I was in Egypt, Mr. Sameh Turki, is still a good friend of mine. Was an amazing leader, exceptional leader. And I, until today, I remember the fact that basically I spent about 3 months in intensive training, going through the facility, the manufacturing facility, climbing over ladders and looking at pipes and valves and so on, going through P&IDs, very intensive training program. But at the end of that program, my confidence level went up 5 times, right, in terms of knowledge and so on. I definitely try to imitate that style, helping my team grow, helping my team develop, ensuring that training for me is a very important part of the team environment. So sharpen the saw all the time, exactly, right? So you have to acquire new skills, you have to polish the skills that you already have, and you also need to share that with your colleagues and so on. Moving on to my career in the US, definitely I've had some great managers. My style is I'm an observant, so I like to really watch people, and I don't imitate anybody, but I just basically like to take whatever I like in one's personality and style and adapt that to my own style.
You asked me a sponge.
Absolutely, but carefully, of course, right? Because not there's no perfect person out there, so you pick the good stuff and leave what you don't like. You asked me about leadership style. I think one of the main things and core leadership principles I have is respect, right? So respect is a two-way street. If I want my team to respect me, I need to show respect, right? Authenticity. That's very important, right? It's just I don't like to be a person who pretends to be somebody that I'm not. So authenticity, this is my style, this is me, and I feel comfortable with that, right? The third thing is transparency. So no hidden agendas. The worst thing that any team would experience is that their leader has a hidden agenda or has different motivation to ask them to do something. So transparency is always great. And again, it's one of those things that are two-way street, right? If you're transparent with your team, they will be transparent with you as well. If they have struggles, they have issues during project, they will come forward and tell you. And another core principle I have, no pointing fingers.
Okay, I love that.
Because stuff will happen. During any project, stuff will happen. It's almost guaranteed. And if somebody tells me that they ran a project with no issues, they either don't know what happened or they are not telling you the truth. So I truly believe stuff happens, and the leadership needs to provide a great example for their team, how to handle problems, how to face problems, and without blaming anybody. Just you learn, you move on, and you never make the same mistake twice.
I think the mindset of solution orientated and everyone's in it together, leading by example. They're great fundamentals, I think, of a great leader that people will follow, because that's what leadership is.
Exactly.
From it, with cross-functional management, obviously, with on a manufacturing site, and if you're trying to build a site, you have multiple different departments that need to do certain things at certain times to make it a success. Have you come across any challenges or things that can be difficult with trying to get multiple departments doing things?
Of course. Running a project is basically trying to deliver an asset that makes everybody happy. And everybody includes maintenance, includes operations, includes technology, includes quality, includes process engineering, and each of those teams have different objectives. So the pull on the capital project comes from every direction. And I think it goes back to, you asked me about the core components or most important things for a capital project. I believe a common goal at the end is the most important thing, right? So, and that basically sets the stage for each team member or team leader to say, okay, I am from process engineering. This is what I want optimally, but I understand that this is basically not what my operational counterpart will appreciate because it will increase the cost of goods, right? It's beautiful, marvelous piece of engineering, but it's very expensive to execute and run, right? Maintenance, for example, very critical component, right? So long-term operability, you could basically, if you consider maintenance early on in the design, you will understand where they are coming from, what kind of factors are important for them in terms of design, accessibility to equipment, maintainability of equipment, availability of components, availability of supplier to help. All of these are very, very important. So again, running a multidisciplinary team is fun.
Well, they're all different personalities in each, to a certain degree. Different in terms of ways of thinking and backgrounds, etc. So it's absolutely many cultures within a whole project scope.
And you could also add a little bit of flavor and spice to the mix if you are running an international project with different cultures. But at the end, it's in my opinion, anybody who gets a chance to work on large capital projects, it's a very rewarding experience. You come out of a mega capital project a different person. You have appreciation for different ways of thinking, even within the same department, within the same team. You have appreciation of a different way of thinking because of different departments, so you have different needs, and of course you have different appreciation or high level of appreciation for different cultures.
It's fascinating. I think getting the team right and then that management of each department and things is crucial, I think, for the success for the projects. And so a lot of our listeners in my network are going to be consultants within the commissioning qualification sort of space. So I was keen to get your insights for them in terms of what would make them stand out on a project in terms of being a top consultant as a CQV engineer. What type of skills and attitude, behaviours are you looking for from them?
In my opinion, based on my experience, the most successful C&Q professionals are those who are process oriented. They like to know how systems work. They like to know the process, where material is coming from, where is it going to, and what happens in between. They are curious people. They always ask questions, and they are not afraid to challenge. Again, honest, transparent, right? Because commissioning qualification is when you really, or actually commissioning, is when you see problems, when you face problems, when you troubleshoot problems. So it takes courage to actually talk about problems and talk about challenges, again, in a very constructive way, in a very positive way, not blaming anybody, but stating facts and so on. I also think C&Q is always the glue that connects process with equipment, with maintenance, with operations. So they need to have a wide tolerance to diversity and ideas and so on, but at the same time they need to be very structured.
Great tips. And for any mid-junior engineer that's looking to progress their career, out of the things of what you would look for that would make a good engineer, is there any advice that you would give them to help progress their career and things?
Absolutely. Roll your sleeves up. Get the wrench, get the set, go in the field. Don't be afraid, it's actually hands-on experience is the best thing any engineer could ever experience.
Nice. And my last question to wrap up the podcast would be, if you could go back to the start of your career, what's one bit of advice you would give yourself?
I would actually advise myself to ask more questions. Right? So sometimes we sit in meetings and especially young engineers, right? And I've been through this. You're afraid to ask questions. Will I look stupid if I ask that question? Is that a stupid question? there is no such thing as stupid question. Actually, young engineers have the luxury of basically being looked at as they're still learning, right? And nobody will judge you by your questions. So ask as many questions as you can. At that stage of one's career, it's the best time to learn. And you would be surprised actually how much more seasoned and senior people would be willing to share and would be willing to educate and would be willing to advise. So again, if I used to be a person who would be carefully asking the questions and so on. If I'm going back many years ago, I would basically be more curious and less careful about don't ask that question.
Great advice. I think it's brilliant advice for any industry and any individual looking to learn and progress anyway. So thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.